Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to bring your attention to a powerful message about God's wrath against sinful humanity. The verses I will be discussing are found in Romans 1 verses 18 to 32. These verses reveal the consequences of turning away from God and embracing wickedness. Let's break it down and explore the message using simple examples. The passage begins by stating that the wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all the godlessness and wickedness of people who suppress the truth by their wickedness. This means that when people knowingly choose to reject God's truth and engage in evil actions, they will face the consequences of their choices. Verse 19 emphasizes that what can be known about God is plain and clear to everyone. God has made himself evident through his creation. Just as we can understand and appreciate the intelligence and craftsmanship of an artist by observing their artwork, we can recognize God's eternal power and divine nature through the wonders of the world around us. For example, when we gaze at a breathtaking sunset or marvel at the intricate design of a flower, we can see glimpses of God's creativity and power. However, despite this clarity, verse 21 reveals that people often fail to acknowledge God and give him the honor and gratitude he deserves. Instead of glorifying God, they allow their thinking to become futile and their hearts to be darkened. It's like receiving a precious gift from someone and not expressing any gratitude or appreciation for it, taking it for granted. As a result, verse 23 explains that people exchange the glory of the immortal God for false idols and images that represent mortal beings, birds, animals, and reptiles. In simpler terms, it's like idolizing celebrities or material possessions, putting them above God in our lives. We become infatuated with temporary things that hold no real power or eternal significance. In verse 24, it is stated that God gives people over to the sinful desires of their hearts, allowing them to experience the consequences of their choices. For example, when individuals prioritize their own sexual desires above healthy, committed relationships, they may engage in behaviors that degrade their bodies and disregard God's intended design for intimacy. Verse 25 highlights the exchange of truth for lies. People sometimes choose to believe and worship created things rather than the Creator himself. This can manifest in various ways, such as idolizing money, fame, or success and pursuing them as the ultimate goals in life, rather than recognizing God as the source of all blessings. In verses 26 and 27, it describes how God gives people over to shameful lusts, resulting in the abandonment of natural relationships. It talks about the distortion of God's design for sexuality, when individuals engage in unnatural acts and desires. The passage emphasizes that such actions have consequences, both in terms of physical and spiritual well-being. Continuing in verse 28, it states that God gives people over to a depraved mind. When individuals persistently reject the knowledge of God, their minds become corrupted, leading them to engage in behaviors that should not be done. This can result in a society filled with wickedness, evil, greed, and depravity, as described in verses 29 to 31. The passage concludes in verse 32 by highlighting that despite knowing God's righteous decree and understanding the consequences of their actions, people not only continue to engage in sinful behaviors but also approve of others who do the same. This indicates a deliberate choice to reject God's standards and embrace a lifestyle contrary to his teachings. In summary, these verses from Romans 1 verses 18 to 32 reveal the consequences of turning away from God and embracing wickedness. They remind us that when we suppress the truth, exchange God's glory for idols, and engage in sinful behaviors, we are choosing a path that leads to spiritual darkness and separation from God. However, it's important to remember that God's ultimate desire is for us to turn back to Him, seek forgiveness, and find salvation through Jesus Christ.